Everybody, Brandon back again at the Kabuki Strength Lab. Today we're talking shoulder function in the bench press. This is a topic that we love to cover because there's a lot of nuance to it and there's a lot of opportunity for people to press heavier with healthier shoulders. Brandon just hit a nice bench PR around 515, so he's going to be our model for today on end range shoulder extension. This is end range shoulder extension. Somewhere back here is true end range. We're going to be working on your end range shoulder extension relative to your bench press pattern and scapular retraction. So the one fault that we see, it's probably the most common fault with people who either have a locked up T-spine, they're people who have more of a kyphotic posture. They tend to dump shoulders forward. They let the bar sink forward. The hand kind of creeps in front of the elbow at the bottom of the bench press, and it leads to some very poor bar patterns, and it limits how much their pecs can actually work. In order for the pecs to really function in the bench press, we need to slightly protract scapula. We're not talking about getting to end range protraction, but in order for the pecs to act as a mover of load and a shoulder stabilizer, the scapulas have to move in protraction and in retraction. They kind of glide in this type of a shape. So we're going to be really working on the bottom portion of the bench press, that end range shoulder extension and retraction portion of the bench press. Brandon, go ahead and lay down on the ground here. This is something that we would do prior to pressing, maybe even on an off day, and it's one of those drills that you should really get good at. The couple faults that we're going to see in this drill are the same faults that we're going to see in a bench press. What we want to do is get Brandon on the floor, prone. We're going to ask him to point his thumbs into the ground here. Good. That start position. From here, he's going to retract and lift his hands off the ground as far as he can. Hands and shoulders coming up as far as possible. So we want to see this pattern here, this big scapular retraction happening. We want to see deep shoulder extension happening. What we can't have is for Brandon to dip into his traps and overly use his traps. Notice what that did to his elbow position. It left his elbows kind of bent, and he's probably feeling a ton of tension up in his traps there. So what we need is for Brandon to raise shoulders and hands in a single motion to where his hands are not creeping excessively above his shoulders, and I'm probably pushing Brandon past his what's comfortable here. But we want that shoulder to get into deep extension, but we want really good scapular retraction. We do not want retraction and scapular elevation or this shrugging up the back. Go ahead and shrug and show what that looks like there, Brandon. This would be still retraction, but it's definitely a ton of upward elevation of the scapula. So this kind of upward pulling pattern. That's not what we want, and that's the same fault that people are going to have in the bench press. This is the same position, this dumping position as Brandon was just in there. So the way that we would work this drill is to cue him to pinch those lower traps, really work these lower traps as hard as he can, pull the shoulders as far as he can, but do not dip into the traps. The way that I like to recommend this drill be done is in a contract, relax format. I'm going to have Brandon hold as hard as he can for a 5 to 8 count and really just work that muscular activation as hard as he can. He's trying to get as high as he can, but he's trying to contract these muscles as hard as possible in that position. From there, he's going to relax for whatever he feels like he needs. It's probably a 5 to an 8 count, and then he's going to get back into it, try and go a little bit further and try and build a bit more awareness towards those lower traps, towards scapular retraction and that end range shoulder extended position. And you could probably see him actually get a little bit better here as he went through these drills. What do you think of that, Brandon?
Very challenging.
That's a challenging drill. Do this prior to pressing. You might even do it prior to overhead pressing. It's not as specific to your overhead press. This is for you guys bench pressing or even rowing. If you're rowing as a, doing primarily back work for a day, this would be an awesome prep drill as well.